We're not? Okay, sorry. Mr. President.
The senator from Utah.
Mr. President, today I'm asking colleagues to support my motion to table the motion to recommit. Now, even for seasoned senators, this sounds like a lot of technical language, and it kind of is, so let's put it in perspective and explain what it actually means. What's really going on here is that we've got a majority leader who has decided to obstruct an open and fair amendment process. The motion to recommit, the motion to commit, which my motion aims to dispense with, is what Senator Schumer is using to block every member of this body from accessing the amendment tree and offering up amendments as they please, making them pending, then having them dispensed with. But instead, Leader Schumer is dictating which amendments are allowed to be voted on and which are not. To cut to the chase, essentially all of them are not. And then he turns around and accuses Republicans of being obstructionists for not wanting to play by his arbitrary rules. Now, some have suggested that too many amendments have been filed, pointing out that among a handful of Republicans, over 80 amendments were filed. This is not a reason to not allow any amendments. Not all of those amendments have sponsors who really want to make sure they get voted on. In any event, the way the Senate works, the way it has long worked, the way it still worked to a significant degree when I first got here in 2011, was that we work it out. We allow amendments to offer members to offer up amendments. And when the body gets tired of it, social pressure coupled with physical exhaustion usually leads to a natural end to the process. But every member of this body has rights, has certain institutional prerogatives and prerogatives accorded under the rules. And the people of our states should be afforded representation, allowing us to address the issues that we think are important. Sadly, some of our colleagues are ready to sacrifice those prerogatives, those privileges and rights under the rules and by Senate custom and tradition for a $100 billion foreign assistance package. Now, it's important to remember that the Senate Republican Conference and our counterparts in the House GOP took a consensus opinion, a consensus position a couple months ago that supplemental spending should not move without language actually forcing the Biden administration to secure the border. There was language that was negotiated by a small number of senators. It took a few months to get it negotiated. When we finally saw it less than a week ago, last Sunday at 7 p.m., it didn't achieve that goal. And for that reason, that proposal received only 4 Republican votes on the vote on cloture on the motion to proceed. Only 1/3 of Republican senators voted for cloture on the motion to proceed to the supplemental without the border provisions. This doesn't make it our conference's position. Quite to the contrary, it makes the position within the Senate GOP supporting cloture a slim minority among Republicans. And so what we're asking is that we be given the opportunity, those of us, most of the Senate Republican Conference who has concerns with the bill, would like more opportunity to debate, and yes, offer amendments to this bill. We need to have that opportunity. I'm seeking this not just for my own interest, but for that of every member of this body, any member of this body, who has one or more amendments that they want to be considered. Look, we shouldn't have to be supplicants to the majority leader and be forced to operate solely in a universe with which he's really comfortable. We all have rights to bring these amendments forward, and we ought to be able to have them considered. So I appreciate my colleagues' support on this motion, and I hope everyone can support it, regardless of how you feel on the bill, and regardless of which political party you belong to. This is for all of us. And it's important to remember that neither passing this motion nor opposing cloture today will kill this bill. Rather, it would keep debate alive and allow amendments to move forward. We should also remember that there is no clock ticking here. This is not something that's going to evaporate. We're not going to turn into pumpkins if we fail to get this done today or tomorrow or this week. We can handle this the way that it should be handled, with great care to make sure that we know what's in the bill and to make sure that members, as many of them as possible, have had a chance to be heard on it and offer improvements to the bill before we move forward. Thank you.
Mr. President.
The President pro tem.
Mr. President, I have spoken quite a bit about how the votes we cast as United States Senators for this funding have tremendous consequences. I've talked about whether or not we deliver this aid, especially to Ukraine, is a question of whether or not America will stand by the world and stand by its allies. How we all decide to vote on this bill could not be more important. It was just last night we heard the presumptive Republican nominee for president openly encourage Russia to attack our NATO allies. All of us in this chamber, all of us understand those words have consequences. Our friends and adversaries alike listen to what major political leaders here in America have to say about issues of global concern. But as my colleagues know, our votes matter tremendously as well. Action, legislation that actually gets signed into law, $60 billion to support our Ukrainian allies. That sends a lot more than a message to Putin. It sends badly needed ammunition and weapons to Ukraine so they can put an end to Russia's bloody invasion. So I urge every one of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join me not only in sending a message to our friends that they can count on America to stand by its word, to our adversaries that they cannot invade sovereign democracies unchecked and unanswered, to civilians caught in conflict around the world, that America will help deliver food and medicine and more. But to join me and vote against this tabling motion so we can finally take action and show the world that Congress is united when it comes to American leadership and resolve on the world stage. We have been negotiating for months now, trying to get this funding over the finish line. Let's all recognize that each time we falter, our adversaries have not been subtle in making a show of it, claiming that America will not do anything to protect its friends and allies. This is the time to prove them wrong. I've said it before, I will say it again. Those of us who understand the gravity of this moment are ready to stay here as long as it takes to get this done. I hope we can soon come together quickly and get this to the finish line as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Utah.
My friend and colleague from the state of Washington makes the point that we need to show unity. Now, nothing says unity quite like shutting out majority of the minority party from having any say in amendments, from having even a single amendment be made pending. If what we're after is unity, then we should move forward and allow individual members to exercise their prerogatives, their rights under the Senate rules and by custom, practice, and tradition and precedent, to make their amendments pending. That's not too much to ask. My friend and colleague also just acknowledged that, as in her words, we can stay here as long as it takes to get this done. If we're respectful to each other's rights, privileges, and prerogatives as United States Senators, it's going to take more time than this. I know many may want to get it done today, and you may feel that way, especially if you think the bill is just perfect the way it is. But we owe it to those we represent to do everything we can to make sure this bill is adequately debated and that amendments are considered. With that, Madam President, I move to table the motion to commit, and I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr.